Joining us now, former acting chair of the Council of Economic Advisors during President Trump's first term, Tom Philipson. Tom, thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to quote you. The United States is not the victim in this global trading scheme that takes advantage of us. All these other nations are, we are the victim. All these other nations are the perpetrators. They're the criminals. And by laying down the law on April the 2nd, that we actually will bring, or President Trump will, these other nations to the table to deal. How does it play out, though? We want some certainty here.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is reminiscent of 2018 when we started the Chinese tariffs as well. What happened then, market took a huge hit. The press said that the world is going under, and then obviously the Biden administration adopted those tariffs going forward. So I think this is on a scale that's much bigger than then. But I think by necessity, if you're going to rebalance this unfair relationship, by necessity, you're going to have uncertainty what that rebalance is going to look like. And that's what the markets are responding. No one knows what's going to happen. Either it's going to go the way of Israel, Vietnam, India, and Switzerland, who have already basically made concessions in response to April 2nd. And therefore, we have expanded free trade in the world in those countries. Or it's going to go in the way of China, which has retaliated against us. But I'm not so concerned about China at all. That's basically, if you eliminate trade with China, that's just a price to pay to not subsidizing communism. We're already paying 3% of our GDP for the military against China, and a small economic cost on the 2% roughly of GDP that Chinese imports make up is not a big deal in my view if you're just clamping down and not subsidizing communism.
Tom, what's the time horizon for people to really assess whether this is working broadly or not? Because obviously many people are really worried. They see the markets falling dramatically. They want some sense of certitude about what's coming. We don't have that yet. When will we start to really, in your mind, get a clearer picture on that?
Well, it's going to start when these countries come to the table, right? Right before, we didn't have any leverage. We couldn't say, if you don't lower your trade barriers for us, we're going to hurt you this way. We didn't have any leverage. Now we have leverage. If you lower your barriers, we will lower our barriers, essentially. And the question becomes, how quickly do these countries come to the table, essentially, and start negotiating down, which is the hope here. If these other countries are lined up, are the sort of a prototypical experience that's going to happen here. This is we're opening up free trade across the globe if they're going to come to the table and lower their barriers.
China's retaliatory tariffs on the U.S., on U.S. goods, now has, Tom, California Governor Gavin Newsom sweating that hair gel right off his pompous pompadour. He's now asking world leaders for a tariff pass. Listen to this.
Donald Trump's tariffs do not represent all Americans. Today, I've directed my administration to look at new opportunities to expand trade and to remind our trading partners around the globe that California remains a stable partner.
This is the same ghoul who went to China and drove around in a BYD electric boat car and acted like a Ron Popeil spokesman for the doggone thing. But what do you make of this posturing? Because I wonder if it's legal.
No, I mean, this is he's just using every page in the book to get attention before 2028, it seems like. His podcast failed. Here's another attempt to set him up against Trump, essentially. Obviously, this is inconsistent with the Constitution, so it's going to go the same way as sanctuary cities went, essentially. You're going to hammer down on it like, look, we have this thing we call the Constitution that has the president, determining trade policy. This is the same. These are the same people who want parents to get away from education policy set in D.C., but they want localized trade policy.
I feel like Ron Popeil is probably a little bit more likable than Gavin Newsom. I wish we could set and forget Gavin Newsom, but I want to turn to topic 3 here. We're covering a broad range, Tom. The March jobs report coming in today, defying expectations, better than expected, and so much growth in the private sector specifically. Let's dive into those numbers. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was roughly 160,000 monthly job growth the last 12 months on average. This is about 40% more than that, so it's a huge boom. And like you mentioned, the key here is that it's all private sector. Federal workforce went down only 4,000, which is actually less than last month when it went down 11,000. But the key is that went down, and this is all private sector growth, which is very, very different from before, where a lot of the job growth we saw was either in the government itself or from government-subsidized markets such as healthcare and education.
Before we jump, and I just want to point out that in 2 months, President Trump has added 9,000 manufacturing jobs, but over the last 2 years of the Biden administration, 142,000 manufacturing jobs were lost, and we were in a manufacturing recession of more than 2 years. Just astonishing. And that's kind of part of what President Trump is doing with the tariffs and trying to right-size trade for the U.S. Final word, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, tariffs get an enormous amount of attention because they're first out, essentially. We have a lot of other policies like tax reform and deregulatory efforts that are coming down the pipe. Those are much more important to our economy, where 85% of our economic activity is U.S. citizens trading with themselves as opposed to international trade with foreigners, essentially. So I think there's a misplaced focus now on this first item out the box, essentially, when much more important things for our economy coming down the pipe.
Thank you, sir. Tom Philipson, it was great to see you.
Thank you.